everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Into the Void. I'm Nick. That's Dan. Hold up, strike that, reverse it. This is Into the Void, where we combined education levels equaling up to a master's degree in tackling subjects that people like to talk about because it's eerie, disturbing, and challenging to talk about. But today, going just diving right deep on in, head first, with all 10 toes planted on the floor, we're going to be talking about the freaking Illuminati. So, with this topic, it is so broad and it's so vague and it's so open for interpretation. So, there's a lot to cover. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. It could be so secretive, but it also could be very disturbing and sad. So, diving right in, let's go to the first bullet point of what we have of discussing what even is the Illuminati. So, take it away, not Dan.
The Illuminati, son. They're listening to us right now. They're going to steal us out the door and probe our innards and then drug us and think we're dreaming, and we're not, and we're going to wake up and we're going to be like, what is that? But, yo, Illuminati, son, I'm really excited. So, first thought is, like, what is your first, like, thought or idea of when I say Illuminati? Like, what comes to mind?
Okay, do you know what adrenochrome is?
Strangely, yes.
That is the first thing that I think of. I think it's a bunch of Jeff Bezos and a bunch of Mark Zuckerbergs drinking baby blood in the woods worshiping an owl god. And that is what I think the Illuminati is. It's people that are above the law, that make the rules, and they're basically just exempt for everything and consequences. They're like, ha, what's that? So that's what I think the Illuminati is. It's like the founders of everything, the people that bought the country years and years and years ago, and they just run everything. So it's like basically like Coca-Cola and Disney, like that kind of stuff. That's what I think of. I don't know. What about you?
That's simply what I believe. What do you think? The thought behind the Illuminati is, in my mind, like a secret, like a few people controlling the many, essentially. But the first, like, logo that came into my brain is the all-seeing eye. So if you think of, like, on the back of the $1 bill, it just has the pyramid, and on top of the pyramid has that eye. And that's like their main symbol is that they're just always looking out. They just always watching and stuff like that. And I mean, the dollar bill is very interesting to begin with. If you like dive into that, there's so many like small things you're like, huh, that's strange. But yeah, that's like my first thought is that all-seeing eye. And there's so many conspiracy theories that dive so deep into it, and I would love to touch on as many as you want. There's a good conspiracy theory is just fun to think about, but at the same time, like, you still have to like remain somewhat level-headed to see, like, all right, what's real. You can't go too far and lose your mind, but like you kind of have, it's out there. But yeah, with the dollar, so like other logos, like I was saying, I believe like CBS, that media outlet, their logo is like an eye. And there's a bunch of others, I believe, but that's the main one that stands out to me. But to make an interesting transition, there's actually, I think it's like on the backside of the dollar, it's like the top right one, like where it shows like the type of denomination of the bill, has like a little owl.
Yes, that blew my mind when I found that out. I'm just like, it's freaking Hedwig, or what's Harry Potter's owl's name? I'm just like, what's that doing there?
Yo, if you want to try to screen share, that's up to you. But I don't know how that even came up. It was probably like a late night video that I was watching.
Go deep into the rabbit hole.
And when I say small, it's like a half a centimeter. You wouldn't even like you gotta know where to look for. If you like Google it, people would circle it so you could see it. I'm like, yo, what the heck is that? So then that is a perfect transition into Bohemian Grove.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
That's why I brought up the owl god. They
that's
tried
like
to sneak that in there.
they're uh-oh. I don't know if you're breaking up,
We're good.
but
We're good.
that's I think we're moving on. Keep it going. So that's like their main annual event, I believe.
Mm. That's like their
So
Christmas.
that's like their Christmas party. So like, what do you know about Bohemian Grove?
All I know is that they meet, I think, in a location in like South America, which, fun fact about me, I forgot existed for like a solid 10 years of my life. Just no one brought it up. Nothing happens in South America. And I just remember one day they're just like, "Oh, South America." I'm like, "The hell are they talking about? Like Florida?" No, apparently it's been there. So anyway, um, they have like a once a year event that they go down somewhere in South America. I'm not sure which. Hilariously enough, is where a lot of German population is, and I think that's where like I think after like World War II, a lot of Nazis like went down to South America, and that's why they're like in hiding. And a little tangent, a little bit, when they were kind of like coming out of their burrows and stuff like that, they said a lot of like artifacts and paintings, all like documents and stuff, priceless artifacts were like found in these like catacomb-esque level stuff under like Nazi control during World War II and stuff like that. And basically after the war, they just flew south for the winter. I don't know. And they kind of just like chilled down there a little bit. And a lot of the time, a lot of like high end corporations or something like that, you would see a lot of their symbols, and you would just see like really like almost like Nazi-esque level memorabilia and there's stuff like hidden amongst their stuff, like one of the like the little owl in the $1 bill. There's like little secret little stuff. But in during that wartime, these these people were like mega rich and just mega powerful, and basically they just went into hiding all these years. And I found it very suspicious how Bohemian Grove is also in South America, where a lot of people went into hiding, people that were of
It
this power level.
quick correction.
Yeah.
It might be in like Southern California actually.
Oh, of course. It's probably behind the Hollywood sign or something. The woods behind the Hollywood sign. And yeah, they go there once a year. They just money, 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 money. You know, like those kind of conversations, whatever. And then they all gather around a bonfire, worship some kind of owl god that manifests amongst the flames and just blesses them with unfair. You know those Yu-Gi-Oh cards that have effects, like those things. They just bless them with, I don't know, side effects or something. I don't know. And they may or may not, probably may, um, drink baby blood, because that harnesses adrenochrome, which is probably, I think they said, like one of the most holy crap drugs out there. So I think the Illuminati are a bunch of rich people that snort baby blood and just talk about money in the woods behind the Hollywood sign once a year. Disney, basically.
You might be going in and out a bit, but we yeah, it's interestingly enough, so some people might completely agree or disagree, but this because he's seen as like a conspiracy theorist and a possible loon, but Alex Jones. But it is interesting that he actually visited or like snuck into Bohemian Grove. I think it was in the year of 2000 when it was still like kind of not, no one really knew about it. I'm not sure when it really started. I know it's like generations old, and the people that go there are like presidents, politicians, celebrities, businessmen, like all these people. And he took pictures in there, he took some videos, and one of the videos, so they have a ritual there. And that ritual is like taking a sacrifice. So they have like this effigy, I believe it's pronounced.
Hmm.
It seems like a wrapped person in like a cloak or a blanket, and they burn it. Um, and I believe Alex Jones believes that that was not a just like a show. It was like an actual person, possibly like a child that they burned. Um, so they have that, and it might. I'm not sure how long it is for. I'm not sure if it's like a long weekend or something like that. And like you mentioned, it's they like worship an owl god or like an owl being. So when I first heard about this, I'm like, yo, what the in the woods, by the way. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I started doing some research into it. It is still interesting. Um, but the more you think about it, so think of this owl god, right? Or, owl that they worship. Think of what owls usually symbolize or stand for, which would be like knowledge and wisdom. So if you think of these people, these like powerful, rich people, worship, not, I guess you could say worshiping, but looking up for like wisdom, that's not really like out of left field. Like, knowledge is power at the end of the day. If you know something that they don't want you to know, they might go after you, type of thing. Um, so, I mean, it makes sense. I did see the reason behind the burning of the effigy would be them, it's like a symbol of them burning their problems or like letting their problems and stresses leave them and possessing that knowledge to grow further. So at this point, I almost feel it like it's not too crazy to me anymore, to be completely honest. Like, it makes sense. Not that I would agree with it. I'd be interested to sit in, but like it's not far fetched for a bunch of important people of the world, of all these politicians, presidents, celebrities, people of power, come together and do that type of thing.
I think when you eliminate consequence, there ensues chaos. And I think when you are of such power and status, basically you are exempt from any kind of penalty or anything like that. So when that stuff kind of happens, pretty much anything goes. And like you say, it's like, oh, it doesn't shock me anymore. Really, it wouldn't, because if you just take away consequence from a situation, like it's like riots and stuff like that. Basically, it's like, oh, I could do something, and since there's so many of us, I won't get caught. So I could just do whatever and pretty much just get away with it. Now, trade that person that's like in New York City that's doing like a riot or something like that with the person of power that basically makes the rules. You have the exact same thing. They probably just do it in a different way. With the whole like a politician side of things, I always found it so nonsensical when they have like interviews with politicians and they're just like, oh, submit your income tax, whatever, or you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and like you took money from whatever and you said you didn't. And it's like, do these interviewers understand that they, like the politicians and like these people of power, do they understand that these are the people that make the rules, that these are the people that are so powerful and so like beyond law? Like we have to abide by rules that they simply don't have to. So why are you asking questions? It's like, oh, you didn't do this. Oh yeah, I didn't do that. I'm just gonna find a clever way of wording it so I don't look like, pretty much like an ass on screen. And it's like, dude, they are exempt. They could do whatever they want. They're like just holding them accountable for like us everyday people, like penalties and like stuff we could get like charged with. They are just simply exempt from that. So like taking away rule and everything, basically you could pretty much do whatever you want. Anything goes. There you go. That's about it. That's all I have.
Yeah, I agree. Uh, with with politicians, it's just like they could basically do anything. They don't really have any laws behind them. I mean, you could start from insider trading. That's literally legal for them. I
Hmm.
think. I mean, not to name any names, but there was one politician that supposedly has made more greater returns than Warren Buffett has, and they're a politician. It's just like it's so obvious that they're like doing illegal stuff. Um, but at the same time, I don't think politicians are like the main people behind it. Um, there's this one quote. I'm trying to look it up. I'm not sure. So the main quote or idea is, "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws." I'm not sure if that was Rothschild. I'm not sure if a quote by Milton William Cooper. But basically, the idea of if you control all the money, it doesn't matter who's in the White House. So you're looking
Right.
at these big businesses; they're controlling everything. So you could look at to go into a little bit deeper of like my idea of the Illuminati is they're kind of like behind closed doors. They're not in front. They're not like the president. They're not these politicians that like are in the public's eyes. They're these handful of group of people in the shadows that are basically controlling everything else. And I mean, some people that you could look toward. I've been doing some research into like BlackRock. If you ever heard of Larry Fink,
Mm.
it's one of those asset managers that holds a ridiculous amount of money, trillions upon trillions of dollars. They hold so much, and with more money comes more power. So like that, or Apple, largest company in the world. Tim Cook is the CEO, or Jamie Dimon with J.P. Morgan, the banker. So all these top CEOs, they're the ones controlling everything in the shadows. When everyone's like looking at the president, thinking he's the most powerful person in the world, when now obviously he has some power. He has more power than I do, but he's not going to control everything.
I think that's what they try to do sometimes is they try to divert your attention away and make you focus on other things while other like the people that are really pulling the strings are behind the curtain pretty much. I think that's what a lot of situations they do like with on the news and stuff. It's like you have this catastrophic level thing or event happen and maybe they don't want it covered too much in like the mainstream media. So then they'll try to like focus your attention on something else to bring your attention away from what's really happening, and that's the entire thing. It's like with like the Illuminati and just like where the world is now. I think a lot of attention, not to get because we really don't get political here, but I don't really feel like this is a whole too political. I think the news the news is very manipulated, and they with the news they really target things that just essentially really don't matter all too much. I think they keep your mind on
You were
something.
breaking up a bit.
I think when the news they cover certain things, they're just distracting you pretty much. It's just like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, let's discuss things to get their mind off of it. Let's talk about stuff like racism. Let's talk about stuff that's like I don't know, different communities and stuff like that. It's like just stuff that just shouldn't even be a problem, and it shouldn't even be like a topic, but they just keep bringing your mind somewhere else. They keep distracting you and focusing on things that just don't matter to keep it away from what's really happening. And plus the news, they talk way too much about weather. Like they are so amazed about how weather happens. It's just like, okay, we're going to talk about the clouds again if it's going to rain again. I'm like, oh, it has something changed since the it's been 90 seconds since the last time we talked about the clouds in the sky. Like they're just constantly just diverging your mind away, you know?
That that's why that brings this conspiracy theory with the Illuminati, because like I mentioned before, the all-seeing eye. Then another all-seeing eye is CBS, if I'm not mistaken. CBS is a media outlet. So they're, like you said, like, because they're controlling the media, they're controlling what you see, so they're diverting you away from what's actually happening. And then they, do whatever behind closed doors, and they're never going to get caught because everyone's, especially now, everyone's divided. And I was actually speaking to a guy the other day. He said something very, like, one of the smartest things I've heard in a long time is there's money in division. And I'm like, that is incredibly wise. Because of all the division from race to gender to religion to politics to everything, they're dividing in all these different things because most likely there's money behind it. And also there's a division of power. If you break up your supposed enemy into smaller groups, then they're not as powerful. I mean, the main reason behind the Declaration of Independence is to keep freedom of the people, because back then it was people versus the government. Like back then, people could overthrow the government. But if you divide the people out, then they have less power and they're less unified, so they don't over control the government. So there's that.
I think do you side question, do you think that we have the cure for some diseases out there like cancer or something like that?
Yes. I'm not sure about cancer, but it would not surprise me at all.
The thing is, why would they release that in the first place?
Yeah.
The money is not in the cure. It's in basically keeping you at your deathbed for as long as they can to get more and more money out of you. Like that's the whole point. You know what I was thinking of the other day, of just like, you work your entire life, you save, you save, you save, you save, you save, and then basically when your body starts to shut down, all that you have accumulated all throughout your life basically goes to you prolonging your own death, and then eventually you just reach like an assisted living stage, a hospice stage, and then you just die one day. Like pretty much everything you work for goes towards just when you get to that point where you're just like slowly like approaching the end, and like those bills, and with that, with like assisted living places, they cost thousands, like tens of thousands, if not like millions of dollars per year to just keep someone alive. And that's exactly what the government does. That, not to get political or whatever,
Yeah,
but basically
I
they
don't know
just
what the
keep you.
average is, but like
Yeah.
10,000 a month for assisted living is like not out of the ordinary. Did
It's
you
like,
just
oh,
hear a beep? That was interesting.
that was the Illuminati tuning in. And we'd like to welcome our guests, the Illuminati, featuring the Illuminati.
Because I know you're listening. I just get like a call now. It says,
Yeah,
it just says unknown or spam. It just says
Illuminati.
the Illuminati.
Oh god, I do believe like the camera to your phone or your laptop. I think there is a man somewhere sitting at a desk like you and I am, just watching at all times. And I went to, oh, you wanna get tingles going up your spine and not in the right way. I took a field trip when I was in Bossies for law enforcement. They took us to this like I'm not going to say an FBI headquarters, but it was like a Secret Service level place, and they were able to like they had like like they had like this giant like movie theater level screen, and they're like, watch this. We could like tap into anyone's phone right now, and they like clicked a couple of buttons, pushed enter, and like a satellite view went all the way to, like you went you know when you go into like Google Maps and it like gets closer and closer and closer. It did that, and it went directly into our building, and it got to the building. It came up as like a 3D thematic of the building, separate like 007 level technology. Like it like breaks like that sonar thing that Batman has in the Dark Knight. Like it just comes up with a 3D thematic of the building. It's like, okay, we're in the second floor. It opens up the second floor. It goes directly to that person's phone, and their camera, like what the camera would be seeing, popped up on the screen. So they are, listen to me now. They are watching. I don't know where this was or what we just saw, but I distinctively remember like we can and that's what always blew my mind. It's like if there's criminals out there, I'm like, can't you just track them? Like you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But anyway, but like they can zoom in, they can see exactly what you're doing, exactly what you're looking at, and like just tap into anything. And I'm like, is anybody else concerned about this? And everyone is, wow, that's cool. You know, and I'm like, no, that's freaking terrifying,
Yeah.
dude. That's the Illuminati.
They're watching us. So that just made me think of Enemy of the State, that movie
Mhm.
with Will Smith. That dude, that was like in the 90s.
Yeah.
They could do all that.
Hmm.
Imagine now.
With I remember it's like one of those radio stations I listen to when they talk about the government and stuff like that. They're like, we have technology to which a satellite in space can read the font on a golf ball from space. Like
Oh my god.
that level of like technology we have readily available. So it's like, come on, like it's going back to like the cure for cancer and stuff like that. It's like, why would they do that? What if you were to go to a doctor or say like a chiropractor, why would they fix you? If they gave you that one pill, or if they cracked your back in that perfect way that solved every situation, they just lost a customer. Why would they do that? Why would Apple release the perfect phone to which you never have to buy another phone again? Why would they do that? There's no money in that. That's what the Illuminati is, of just keeping everybody in fear, and they will just constantly consume. And that's basically exactly where everybody is now. It's like, oh, I want the iPhone. What are we on now? 14?
Maybe. I honestly don't even follow it.
They keep you honed in on like, oh my god, 18K resolution camera. Listen, we have all the technology, and they are slowly like getting better, slowly, and it's they just keep you consumed. But we in fact have technology up today in pretty much any category that can solve a majority of the problems. They just won't do it because, like everything else, Disney, money. There you go.
Yeah, that I was thinking of that same thing with like cars. If you think of every luxury branded car, why should they make it good and last like 20 years when they could make it just good enough to last 3, just long enough for the lease, and then you go and buy the next one. Same thing with like medication. There's no money in the cure. There's money in the
medicine.
the medicine. A crazy statistic I just learned: the most cause of like death. So the top was like cancer. Second was heart attack. The third was medication. That's
Like
how
how so?
I believe it's like I just how it deteriorates the body and how it could be
Oh,
just it doesn't really help. Like it could also with like side effects. Like sure it might help one thing, but then another problem pops up. So it might not be like a miscommunication of dosage, which could be another problem. But it's just like the medication out there. And going back to or bringing up the fact that medication commercials are legal in 2 countries in the entire world, by the way, America and New Zealand. Everywhere else, it's illegal.
wow. I mean, I have never paid attention to like any medication commercial because it's just because I forget what the medication was even for in the first place. There's so many side effects. I'm just like, what did this solve in the first place? Because now oh, I don't have a cough anymore, but now I have gonorrhea, and like it's there's so many like side effects and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, medication is it's a scam. But you know what else is a scam? Insurance. Yeah,
You're betting against yourself.
don't
Yeah.
even get me started with that.
So
Limu, the emu, or whatever that it. Okay, listen. 5-second tangent. Liberty Mutual's insurance commercials blow. Okay, I despise their commercials. The amount of money that I have given this insurance for years and years and years, and you're coming at me with a freaking ostrich. Like, no, no, son. Switching in the process.
they could technically come back at you. The fact that you remembered it is why it's working. That's how they look at it, possibly. Anyway, going back to other secret societies. So we touched on Bohemian Grove. If you want to go into it a little bit more, you can. But other similar ones I learned about was Skull and Bones. That's another secret society. I'm not sure if it's like, Illuminati top level stuff. But I believe it was started in Yale, I want to say. Might have started in like early 1900s, maybe earlier. But all these like secret places are like, they've been around for a bit. And again, it's usually with like presidents and celebrity, that type of level stuff. So that's always interesting. Um, I also recently heard of what was it called? Square and Compass. Have you ever heard of that?
That rings a bell, yeah.
If you look it up, you'd probably know the symbol. Um, it's like it's literally a square and compass. So the bottom is like like of an architect. Their tools is like a square of how like you would make right angles and stuff, and a compass is on top. So it's almost the symbol almost looks like
I
this
think I
in
know
a
what
way,
you're talking about. Yeah.
and there's a G in the middle.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So which is a segue to something else, but yeah, that's I'm not sure if that is related to Freemasons, which is also interesting. Um, I don't know too much about that, but that's definitely one of those secret societies that's fascinating. But going back to the G, I forgot what they were saying. It was either for like geometry or something. or God. So one of
Creative
those.
guys.
Yeah, something like that. But that was something else. But moving on to, so Illuminati could take a lot of different forms or like groups and stuff. But a lot of people might think like their headquarters or
Mm.
like the end of days. Like, all right, if something happens, the powerful people obviously have some backup plan. There's going to be some underground bunker, right? So I started doing research into the Denver airport.
Hmm.
That is super interesting. So this was, I'm not sure when it was built. I think they started. It is the largest airport in America, by the way. Um, Obviously in Denver, Colorado. I think Denver's in that state. Uh, but and so they built it. I want to say like '96 or something. Largest airport. They went $2 billion over budget, which to be completely every state, project that always happens. So that doesn't really like ring any bells for me. But what's interesting, if you want a screen share, we could pull it up. If not, I could talk about it. Um, but like in front of it, there's this statue of a horse, and it's kind of like bluish. Really cool. But the eyes glow red. And I'm like, what the frick? So when I first heard about this airport, I'm like, yo, something's up here. So I dived a little bit more into it, and I really don't think so. But the fact it's just very interesting. So within the airport, there's a lot of different types of art, and there are some murals. If you pull up like Denver Airport mural, the first one that will come up is like, uh, I think it's titled like "Children Dream of Peace" or something like that.
I think I know what you're talking about. It's like a wall piece.
Yeah, it's a painting on a wall. It's a mural.
I remember seeing something like that.
Super. I wish I could screen share. I got to learn how this Skype thing works. If you want to screen share, we could pull it up. But it's so the picture is of a soldier in like a gas mask, which easily could be seen as like a Nazi. And he has a sword, and the sword is like cutting a dove, so like killing a dove. So obviously the soldier represents like war, and killing the dove is like peace. So it's destroying the peace. And around him is like a destroyed city and town. You have children with a bunch of like parents or mothers. They're like all crying, and there's like a wisp. How to describe it? Kind of like a, I don't want to say thought bubble, but coming from like one of the children, and then eventually like goes into like a rainbow. Like so they're trying to dream of peace, but in reality they're in this hell.
Okay.
Right. So when I first saw this mural, I'm like, yo, what the hell? This is an airport. Um, so there's another one of something similar, another mural, and it's of the background is like a forest burning. I forgot the title of it. I could pull it up real quick. But it's like a forest burning. There's a couple animals in these like kind of glass cases that signify extinction if this like continues. Um, and there's all these like different nationalities of children they're like you see in their faces. There's just like horror. It's the only thing I would describe it as. And there's just basically all death around them. So again, looking at these, I'm like, yo, it's an airport. What's going on here? So I did more research into, and there's like, so if you type in Denver Airport, like the first option to search for is like Denver Airport conspiracy theories, because it's so strange. And so I did more research into it, and another thing that made people weird it out is like from the aerial view, it looks like a swastika.
Of course.
So I'm like, what the frick? And so there's
So
like all these things adding up. There's another thing of so they have a time capsule in the airport. So it was built in 1996. So they're going to reopen it in 2096. So after 100 years. And on it's not a tombstone, like the slab of the time capsule had that logo of the square and compass. So people are like, yo, what's going on? And it was like this was purchased, but so like memorials are purchased by certain communities or members, and it was purchased by the new International Airport Society or something like that, some name like that. It was weird, and apparently that society doesn't exist. So there's all these things that are like, it was so strange, which is why a lot of people think there's a conspiracy theory. Like, it's so big, it went over budget, $2 billion. If the end of the world hits, the Illuminati is going underground because there must be tunnels under the airport, and that's their headquarters. And I'm like, super interesting. Like, I'm having a fun time doing research. So I'm doing more research into it. And I want to bring up the fact that it's super important to, when you hear things, you shouldn't take it at face value. You have to be like, okay, this is what they're saying. Is this true? You have to do your own research into it sometimes. It's almost like I came up with this idea of someone could write a book, right? There's an author to a book, and there's a moral behind the book. So you could either read the book to get that moral, or you could listen to someone who summarizes the book to get the moral. Right?
Yeah.
And in doing so, obviously, if you do the summary, that's an easier way. So a lot of people would do that. In doing so, you're assuming that summary is correct instead of reading the actual book and seeing the author's actual words. I think in society today, we don't, because that takes a lot of time.
And reading a book? Oh.
So that type of thing. It's easier to, read a headline and be like, oh my God, that's true. So I was trying to do like, all right, is this like, what's going on here? So the first thing with like the Nazi symbol from Google Maps, I'm like, all right, Google Maps thing this. It loosely signifies that, jagged, crooked cross, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you think about the airport, an airport requires long runways. And to avoid traffic, they would have to come at it from different angles. Right? This is just me thinking. So it could just be a bad design that it happened to be in that, design.
They looked at it after the fact, like, oh man.
Yeah. Like I kind of have that, because it's not like a complete obvious like, yo, like that's a Nazi symbol. It's like loosely that. So I'm like, okay, I'm in the middle of it. I see either way. So I went into more detail of these, like the background with this stuff. So looking at the murals, because these are like, what the frick is going on? So the murals, there's one mural right next to another mural. So it's almost like a before and after. So that first mural that I described with the soldier, of so the soldier like with the kids and they're all crying. If you're just looking at that one mural, a person could see like they want war to like destroy everyone else type of thing. But if you take a step back, it's a before and after. So that's the before mural of like of this is the war and everything, and then the after shows like a bunch of happy children basically. So like there's we want to achieve this. So it's less sinister, I would say, of like don't get me wrong, the artist is very, for me anyway, that art is super interesting. But public art really isn't that like like uh I don't know, grotesque, I guess. Um but yeah, it's kind of like a before and after where like, all right, instead of having this war like world, we want to have this peaceful world. And slight more detail of interest, on the bottom there's like this note written by some child in a concentration camp, from I don't know 43 or something, like 1943 or something, and it was like an actual note in history. The kid was like 16 years old, and he was basically writing like, I'm living in this hell, I'm dreaming of like a better world type of thing. So that's why they named it that.
Hmm.
So that's kind of that first mural. I'm like, okay, it's kind of like we don't want that hellish world of World War II stuff. We want this more peaceful world, all children and smiles. So, and then there's that other mural of all those kids with like burning woods in the back, extinct animals, and all, and like death and stuff. That's the before. The after is like all these kids with peace, like non-extinct animals, like making sure like there's um, like nature is flourishing and all this stuff. So looking at the mural from a distance of what they're trying to get at, I could see how it could be misinterpreted of how like it could be a Illuminati headquarters. They want to like, you know, have this hellish world and just attacking people. When it could be more of an artistic approach of a before and after world.
Mm.
What I just said, people could then go back to they want to have this world, so once all of us are eliminated, then they would have a peaceful world.
Do you think the Illuminati, they have some kind of like secret underground catacombs that just link some kind of city scale esque level stuff underground, and then, well, basically hell or war is just raining above them. They are just underground, and then after after they cryogenically sleep or freeze themselves, they'll just emerge in 20 whatever what year you said, 2090 something, and then they'll just come out of the ground in like mech suits, like some astronaut level looking suits, whatever, and it would just be like, okay, let's start anew or something like that. All the people that have the cure for every disease down there, and they just don't age or don't like have any problems, whatever, and they just emerge into a new world that hopefully is just purged itself of the heretics, to which pretty much that's everyone that's not of the Illuminati level, and they're like, okay, and now let's start over, and they think they'll just create some level of civilization, depicting themselves as gods in a sense.
I could see both ways because I have examples of exactly what you're saying. Are there backup plans? Absolutely. Like if you're looking at people of power, it could be presidents, it could be business leaders, it could be other world leaders. If you don't think they have like an underground I don't know if I want to say fortress, but like some underground like safe room, that's 99.9% likely.
If I had that money and power, that's Batcave instantly.
Bruce Wayne. The Wayne family butler. Yes, I do think there's some type of underground bunker for important people.
Yes.
You could go deeper into like, do you think there are underground tunnels and cities to then replenish the world's population after it has been diminished?
Why not at this point? You know? I think it's I forgot what part of the world it's in. I think it's Russia or Germany or something. They just have underground tunnels that were made for transporting like wartime equipment, like just whatever. And they just stopped doing that. And now there's just these tunnels, like miles and miles and miles of tunnels that are just not being used. And it's like that movie Us, they have that pretty much a world underneath our world, and they just like mimic what we do and stuff. I could completely see that without a doubt, that being a possibility. That would be freaking wild to discover, because really no one searches for stuff anyway. I feel like there's no like, let's keep digging, guys, and we'll like find something. Like, oh, you'll thank me one day. Like, and they're not like searching for stuff. You know what I was thinking the other day? When I'm driving to work every single day, how we are still driving in like a 2-dimensional plane. Like how like there's so much real estate in the sky. There would be,
Or even underground too.
exactly. I'm like, why aren't we utilizing below ground, above ground? Like it's just like above like surface level. It's just nothingness into the sky. And I'm not saying we should have like a Star Wars-esque looking that scene where they're chasing Boba Fett, like just fly anywhere, like just whatever. But I think we need to utilize the space a little bit better. And underground, that definitely exists, and that's completely plausible. Like, you have freaking trillions of dollars and no consequences. You could do whatever the hell you want.
Elon Musk actually brought that up of like with highways and stuff. You can if you think of like intersections, you could either like one way could go just like straight, and the other way could either go over or under the intersection, so there's no intersections. I'm
There
like,
you go.
yep, that'll probably just take too much money that they would rather spend on other stuff. But yeah, I agree.
Let's send a Corvette into space. Yeah, that's better, Elon. That's a great idea.
So, going back to the underground stuff. Quick tangent. There was, I forgot where, but there was under this dude's house, he literally just dug a freaking temple under his house. No one knew, because how would they? So like I think like when he died, they like excavated his house and they found like his basement, and they're like, what? And he had like a cathedral under his house. um,
we got our hobbies. Don't worry about it.
which is awesome. And more of a historical tangent. There, some ancient civilizations have supposedly underground like cities because so the world has technically ended multiple times of
Mhm.
different like ice ages or different cataclysmic events. One could be like an astro, like the dinosaurs that ended one world and started another kind of thing. So apparently humans lived throughout these periods. So to avoid these like asteroids, they would like build underground cities to like live, and then eventually they would reemerge. The Illuminati could be doing that. You never know. But I thought that was an interesting thought. But going back to like, do you think they're waiting for something to happen, or do you think they're gonna cause something to happen? Because I have a couple examples. Because there's a deep rabbit hole of just, I'll see, one dude's name, Bill Gates. Because, what, I had to rewind what he said. There's this one TED Talk. He was talking about, I'm not sure if it was viruses or cyber attacks or something like that. Something that like could threaten people. And he was bringing up the idea that like we have to depopulate the world.
Absolutely, by at least 80%.
So, and he said that, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? I literally had to go back. He literally said that.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what? So, I mean, he has a long history, which is very strange to say the least. He's done a lot of stuff in Africa. Um, but yeah, there's his name. I could go into the World Economic Forum. If I disappear one day, you'll know why. But with Klaus Schwab, oh man, that's another name that you could dive into. But one of those, like, they're basically controlling the world. And, outside of politicians, just like those back door secret people that's controlling the world when everyone is just diverted in other ways, type of thing. Have you ever heard of Klaus Schwab?
The name rings a bell, yeah. How can you forget a name like that?
No, dude.
Schwab.
If he just so he's of a German descent, I believe.
Of course.
So, and if who knows, he could be like a swell guy. He could just want the best for everyone. But as soon as he starts speaking, he just sounds evil, dude. He's like, this is a bad guy.
Wow, that's a bad
And
guy.
I could be wrong, but it just like, so again, going back to that thought of, you could read all these headlines and you could get these perspectives, opinions of people, and they could be wrong. So I'm like, all right, let me just listen to this guy. So I looked up an interview of the dude. He has a book, by the way, called COVID-19, The Great Reset. Might set off some red flags, but whatever. So he's basically saying like that we're in a new world right now.
Oh yeah.
And we can't, you can't deny the fact we are. So he had an interview. It's like an hour long, and I listened to him. I'm like, all right, maybe he's just misunderstood. I was taking notes because I didn't want. All right, so he said, I don't want to get too boring, but it's just so interesting to me anyway. He literally said that we spent $10 trillion during COVID that will have to be paid back in some way by future generations. People don't understand if you spend that much money, that has to be paid back somehow. So future generations, they're going to have a harder time than we are now, which is why the generation now is having more of a harder time than past generations because of basically inflation, which is just an invisible tax, but that's a deeper conversation for another video. He, you can look this up. He literally said the next crisis is going to be a climate crisis, and it's right around the corner, which is why all this stuff is popping up about. And again, I have to do my own research into this. I don't have my own opinion on it, but all this global warming and climate control or climate change, that could be debated hard. An interesting thought that I heard of is because, all right, so there's a lot of like CO2 gas, right? And that's seen as bad for the environment, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not crazy, right? Someone brought up, isn't CO2 good for trees? So wouldn't that be good? And I'm like, yo, what?
Huh?
I'm like, that's he's right. Anyway.
Oh man.
So that was like such one of those simple truths that just like dismantles an entire argument. Anyway. But yeah, he literally said like the next crisis is going to be a climate crisis. He wants to integrate more inclusion for a social construct. And you're seeing that with the ESG movement. I could go in hard with that, but ESG, if you've heard of that, a lot of companies, they need an ESG score, which is environmental, social, and governance. You could basically deconstruct it being like the environmental part is like just bullshit. And they're just trying to like make everyone it's not that good, honestly. The social aspect, it's honestly very concerning. But he brings up ideas of environmental virus. So he wants to scare the shit out of people. That's literally seems like it. Other things he mentioned: everything will be digitalized that can be digitalized, and he wants to focus on facial recognition and tracking people. His words, by the way.
Which they already do.
Yeah. So, facial recognition, obviously, Apple, all these new iPhones, they have that already. Going back to that movie of Enemy of the State, the satellite can literally like scan your face so they know where you are. Tracking people. You could then go into CBDCs, which is central bank digital currencies. If you want, we could go into more detail with that. But if they're controlling your money, they're controlling everything. They're controlling you.
Oh yeah, if you think you're in control of anything, you're delusional.
So those are some of literally his words that I wrote down that he spoke, which they just sounded odd. Like a normal person wouldn't speak like that in my mind. But that's enough. That's enough about me. What do you think?
It's definitely like we said before, the Illuminati is just some crazy, just it's so expansive, and it's just there's just so many parts of it. There's not just like one set like part of it thing. So that's why it's like tackling multiple different sides, multiple perspectives, and multiple interpretations, it just it's like a YouTube rabbit hole. It just keeps going. It feels like it just like family tree branches off into so many things. It's pretty much like an iceberg. Like it just keeps getting darker and it keeps getting deeper, and it gets you some crazy stuff. Also, I was thinking with like Area 51 stuff of like guys in black suits. Is that like, because there's different interpretations of the Illuminati and stuff. Do you think that's like a Secret Service level type stuff, or do you think it's like a Illuminati thing? I don't know, because there's so many different types of like Illuminati groups that could possibly be one as well. Because why not at this point?
Yeah, I think it might be what you describe Illuminati as. If you just describe Illuminati as like a secret society, you could argue that Area 51 is like a secret type of thing. To me, I believe Illuminati is like kind of more about power and controlled by the few, and they control the many.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I wonder if you're breaking up a little bit. But who knows? They could be. I wonder how much control they would have, though. Like if you're back, I think. But
Yeah, we're
yeah,
good.
like, do you think they're control? Does Illuminati control?
Mm.
I feel like it always goes back to aliens. Just
That guy
everything.
with the wacky hair. Aliens.
Aliens.
Ancient aliens. Everything biblical, everything government, everything aliens. This guy's
Well,
crazy.
if you ever heard of a guy called David Icke,
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
a lot. He's like kind of a theorist. Some people think he's a loon. He kind of has some interesting thoughts. But he has the thought that like presidents and people of power are lizard people. They're like reptilians.
I could see that. At this point, listen, we all been to Walmart, you know. There are some crazy backward suspender wearing lizard people out there, and it's like, but I mean, you look at guys like Mark Zuckerberg. You can't tell me this guy don't look the slightest bit off. Like the Fibonacci sequence of his face just doesn't add up. Like there's like one too many 13s in his like sequence. You know what I mean? I uh, uh, I don't know. I mean, when you're in that much power and have that much money, I feel like you can't be someone like good looking. Like you got to be some like working at Payless looking dude. To it it looks like he has like so much money and so much responsibility that every single time I see his face, he's like in some kind of courtroom, and he's just like, I have to watch every single word I say because then it could all just go away. Like he just looks like he's just in so much stress all the time. But
Yeah. From my perspective, I might not believe in reptilians, but metaphorically, they're definitely not human.
I think there are definitely people. Like I said, in like previous episodes, I'm a firm believer that there are people out there that are not like you and me. Like they were birthed from like like they were like birthed from a petri dish, but they were like shelved for like a very long time. And like then they got like brought into like they were like they ran some kind of electrical charge through them to make them alive again. And some lady just like, I want to have kids, but I can't. And then anyway, but I yeah, absolutely. I think people, there are some people out there that I swear to God, it may not be like lizards in skin suits, maybe not that extensive, but I am a firm believer that there are some people on autopilot mode that are just like, I don't even know. Like they're, I don't know.
I mean, you could argue that so what makes a human being is like critical thinking. Like you think for yourself. And if everyone's on like autopilot and they're not thinking, which is you could argue that's why or they're that way because of the school system. If you drill down deep enough, by the way, the school system is so they have the curriculum within the school system, and who controls the curriculum could be them. So they're making us brain dead. So you could technically argue we could be in like a zombie apocalypse right now.
Oh yeah, oh completely. They devise the school curriculum. They basically teach you all dead end and pointless stuff. They keep you stupid and they produce nothing but stupid, because why would they teach you what a W-2 is? Why would they teach you how to file your taxes? Like why would they teach you all these things that would make you outsmart the government when they are the government? So basically, they're like, I don't know, teach them about the Ottoman Empire in 13 BC, like that kind of stuff. All this stuff that it could be fascinating, sure, but like just getting out into the real world, it's like now you feel like you know so much about nothing things, and now in reality you know nothing, and that's exactly where the government wants you to be, because that's how they make money. And then they further distract you with clouds and stupid stuff that doesn't matter to anybody. And that's their formula that they stick with.
I didn't do enough research yet, but I did hear like if you go deep enough into the school system and the school curriculum, it's actually run by George Soros, which is one of those other power players who's, like a multi-billionaire trying to like control the world. I heard he literally said like he thinks he's a god. And whoever says stuff like that, you can't trust them.
It's like, okay, Kanye, like, like, relax.
Like yeah, when I mean you could even bring up freaking Anthony Fauci during COVID. He literally I gotta confirm this. I gotta do my own research. But if I'm not mistaken, he said, I am the science. When he said that, I'm like, hold up, relax. No, you're not.
You have to show your work.
But yeah,
I'm my own hero.
but yeah, when people start like making crazy statements like that, and all this like censorship going on right now, that another idea that I heard, which is completely true. If you look throughout history, the people that censor stuff are usually the bad guys.
Oh yeah.
So all this like the media stuff and the government and everything, they're all censoring all this stuff. And people still believe them. Like they're the good guys and they care about you. Like no.
I think
Look, even like it's not even like prehistoric history that you have to look into. Like, look, last year, they've literally proven that they don't care about you.
And I think they even convinced people to even censor ourselves with freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of bearing arms, and stuff like that. I feel they've gotten the general populace to a point where it's like, okay, they have all these rights supposedly, and will convince them that they need to censor themselves because again, they targets just pointless things that should not be a problem, but they just keep it a problem. And that's basically how you control people. It's just fear and consumption. That's it.
Yeah, that's where society, especially consumption, instead of that's where everyone is focused on thinking that you can buy your way into happiness when all that money it's such a deep spider web. It's so interesting. So they teach consumerism that you have to buy, and all that money, dude, all this money goes to them, right? And it could be in all these different corporations, right? However, all these corporations are under a holding corporation. So there's like basically all these bigger companies are buying all the small ones. So all the money is still going through, it seems like a giant spider web, but at the very top goes to one person.
Hmm.
So that one person could be like BlackRock or could be Apple or could be, that's, I mean, you could look at Disney because they're buying all these different things. They buy, obviously, they have their network, they have Marvel now, they have all these different branches. If you look at, I mean, even Amazon, they purchased Whole Foods and stuff like that. Um, Procter and Gamble, they have all these different products that you buy in the store. It could be like Kellogg's and whatever. You could buy all these products, but it still goes to that one person.
It gets to a point where it's just like, well, kind of feel like the odds are stacked against you a little bit. The people that
Oh
the
yeah.
world is a game, and the people that are making the rules, they're exempt from consequences, and they can do whatever they want. And it's just it is what it is at this point. And that's kind of what we like to talk about here with Into the Void. We talk about things that are very difficult, very sickening, very depressing, and we talk about things that make you just feel very minuscule in this world because that's really what we are. But if we gather enough audience to talk about big topics, I feel that we could address things that they're trying to like dilute down and trying to kind of like push under the rug and stuff like that. But I think like slowly at a time of just bringing things to the light, we could like not expose things, but just like make it known and just know that it's like out there. I don't know. Any any last thoughts on the whole Illuminati topic?
Uh, yeah, I have to bring up. I can't talk about this topic without mentioning the Fed and the Federal Reserve. Uh, that's like if they're controlling the money, they're controlling everything else. But I want to end on a couple just like names or just like topics that's always kind of um, Illuminati focused, and I think it's kind of funny. But so starting with aliens, always. Next would be JFK. Some people could say Illuminati assassinated him. Same thing
Absolutely.
with same thing with Martin Luther King Jr.
We
Same
can't
thing
end
with
racism, and JFK was like oh, I want to put more money into deconstructing the government and just more UFO funding, and they freaking offed him real quick.
Yep. Um, John Lennon too. You could argue that.
Spreading peace? Nah, can't have that. You gotta have people angry and in fear. They'll keep buying freaking iPhones.
Michael Jackson. He knew things, man. And you could even go back to, I don't know if I agree with it, but some people could bring up Jesus.
Hmm.
They outed him.
I think with the whole like religious side of things, it's like same thing with like it's pretty much JFK was just Jesus in the modern day, and they just freaking get, hey guys, we shouldn't be spreading hate. We should be all cookies and cream, man. Peace out, you know. No, nope. Get rid of his ass. And no, here we are. They looked at it like, oh, so like no, it's freaking conspiracies.
Yeah. But
Also,
yeah, just continue.
I also think that there is no such thing as the religious side of things. I think there's like no such thing as, you know, whatever, however you want to process this. I really don't care. I think the government is God, and they basically like look at the hypocrisy and look at just the structure of what it is. Tax exempt and all these things, and they play it off of just like, oh, it's this omnipotent being. Listen, with everything we just said of I am the science, I am God. Yes, you know, absolutely, because these Illuminati people at this point, it's just like of what money that religion racks in, and the greed that flows in between behind closed doors and stuff like that. Who does that sound like to you? That's the freaking, that's the government. Like they have that role, they have that power, so why not play that role?
Yeah. It's there's so many different spider webs that you could go
Hmm.
deep into. And interestingly enough, it seems like a lot kind of lead to the government at the end. And that's what makes people like go crazy. They're like, it's the government. You can't trust the government. And like, I'm not saying that's wrong, because that's kind of right. Like, they're not looking out for you. You got to look out for yourself.
They're looking to milk the system uh, as much as some people out there are trying to do now.
Yeah.
They're just trying to keep you alive longer so they could get more money out of you. They're not here to help you. They're not the hero of the story. They are the villain. And if you think like you're cheating the system, or you're like trying to like outsmart them, whatever, listen, this country was bought years and years and years ago. No one's exempt. No one can just like outsmart the game when they make the rules. Anything else you want to bring up?
No, that's kind of the main points I wanted to touch on.
All right. Well, that about wraps up this episode of Into the Void, where we talk about the freaking Illuminati and how they create everything, harness everything, and you don't own a damn thing in your house the way you think you do. They own it. You're not a person. They probably have all of our bodies somewhere in a freaking in a vat somewhere, and we're all just dreaming this reality. But hey, that's just our interpretation here. So feel free to put any kind of comments or whatever of what the Illuminati means to you, because it means something different to everybody. And that's, we like to be inclusive here on Into the Void. So spread the word, spread the opinions. Let's have a conversation. But
Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Into the Void, where we talk about stuff that always dilutes down to pretty much aliens. So, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next video. Stay weird and all that stuff. We don't have an intro. That's it.
Thanks for watching. I think my dog's part of the Illuminati. Is watching. Always.
Oh, they got the pigeons are all cameras in their eyes. Just remember that it's aliens and pigeons.
The